Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
Good evening, everyone. We want to thank you for being here tonight. I'm now calling this meeting to order. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call. Walker. Here. Townsend. Here. McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley. Here. Walters. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Holland.
Here. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend Artrell Harris of Roswell Church of Christ. And standing in for Reverend Harris tonight is Reverend Mark Holland from Trinity Community Church, United Methodist Congregation. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for this day that you have made. We thank you for gathering us together to do the work of your people. We ask that you will guide us and lead us in our thoughts and in our words, that we might do your work in your way, to help the least, the last, and the lost in all of our considerations. We ask this prayer in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Holland. We appreciate your being here this evening. All right, I'll ask the clerk to see if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have a blue sheet this evening. Under the administrator's agenda, we have 2 items. Item number 2 is being deleted. It's a resolution for the Memorandum of Understanding with the International Association of Firefighters. The MOU has been signed as originally approved by Commission. Therefore, this item is no longer required and is being removed from the agenda. Item number 3, the portion of that agenda item is the MARC presentation. That presentation is being deleted tonight.
All right, thank you very much. All right, there are 2 distinct parts of our meeting tonight. The first is Planning and Zoning, and the second is our regular commission meeting. We will begin with Planning and Zoning, and we'll ask our clerk to read the required Planning and Zoning statement, followed by the agenda.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the Commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Hal Walker, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items on the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the consent agenda, and we appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any members of the commission wish to disclose any contacts of proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Commissioner McKiernan.
I've had contact with proponents and opponents of 2017-9.
Let the record show there are no other disclosures.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone application, item 1, 3128 Nicholas Porto. Change of zone R2B, 2-family district to M2 General Industrial District for auto sales and service at 1243 Scott Avenue, recommended for denial. Item 2, number 3140, Brandon Knetter. Change of zone in AG, agricultural district to R1 single-family district for a single-family home at 13300 Donahue Road, recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item 1, SP 2016-99, Nicholas Porto. Special use permit for auto sales and services at 1243 Scott Avenue, recommended for denial. Item 2, SP 2017-1, Scott Gobble with Pam Corp. LLC. Special use permit for a 79-inch self-supporting stealth-type monopole tower at 1226 Armstrong Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 3, SP 2017-9, Willie Fields with Silver Dollar Int. LLC. Renewal of a special use permit for a drinking establishment and live entertainment at 16 North James Street and parking at 2, 4, and 12 North James Street, recommended for approval for 6 months. Item 4, SP 2017-10, Jason Myers with Coach Automotive Restylers. Special use permit for a dealer's license to buy and sell cars at auction at 3030 South 24th Street, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 5, SP 2017-12, David Zaneri with Kansas City Property. Special use permit automotive repair shop at 6656 Inland Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 6, SP 2017-18, Korean Blankenship with Sweet Celebrations. Renewal of a home occupation special use permit for a catering and bakery service at 12325 Bellevue Road Drive, recommended for approval for 10 years. Item 7, SP 2017, Hafni Lakari with 32 Highway Liquors LLC. Renewal of a special use permit for the liquor store at 6832 Kansas Call Drive, recommended for approval for 5 years. Item 8, SP 2017-25, George Zalazar with Zag Inc. Renewal of a special use permit at Live Entertainment in conjunction with existing restaurant at 151 South 18th Street, Suite A, recommended for approval for 2 years. Vacation application, item 1, A 2017-2, Darrell Walker, vacation of an alley at 1110 Shawnee Avenue, recommended for approval. Plan Review Application, Item 1, SP 2017-13, Darrell Hawkins with Innovative Design, Preliminary and Final Plan Review for a new church at 4121 Minnesota Avenue, recommended for approval. Master Plan Amendment, MP 2017-1, Nicholas Porto, Master Plan Amendment from Residential to Light Industrial at 1243 Scott Avenue, recommended for denial. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I'll now ask if any member of the audience, any commissioner or staff member would like to remove an item from the Planning and Zoning consent agenda. Please step forward at this time. Any item not removed will be voted on by a single vote. Yes, sir. Your
Good
name
evening.
and address,
My name
please.
is Nicholas Porto. We'd like to remove items 1, change of zone number 1, special use permit number 1, and master plan amendment number 1. We'd like to remove those items from the consent agenda, and we're going to ask that they be sent back to the
We'll set them aside and we'll call you forward at that time and you can make your request.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those items are set aside. Any other items to?
Move for approval for all remaining items?
Second.
I think we have all three. I want to ask this. Did he get all three items?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
A1, B1, and E1.
All right. There is a motion for approval.
McKiernan,
Did you second it?
Yeah.
Thank you. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right. That brings us to the items that were removed. Item A1, B1, and E1. We will consider them together for this purpose of this conversation and public hearing. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Nick Porto. I'm an attorney and represent Elder Cabrera, the applicant and owner of an automotive sales business on Scott Avenue. I've had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Richardson this evening in advance of our hearing this evening, and briefly had a discussion wherein we would request this gets sent back to the Planning Commission so we can amend our plan and work with Mr. Richardson to come up with a acceptable solution and put that back before the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you. That is your request. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the public hearing, give people an opportunity to speak for or against it, and then after we have had that public hearing, we will open it up and see if the commission would like to honor your request. All right, so I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance tonight who would like to speak in favor of this application as presented before us? Anyone that'd like to speak in favor?
Does that include, we obviously have some remarks prepared if we're going to go forward this evening. I didn't.
What I'll do, I still have to hold, I believe I still have to hold the public hearing in order to do this.
That's correct.
So we'll go ahead and hold the public hearing, and we'll give you an opportunity at the close of the public hearing to make your comments. I would say this, if the commission decides they're going to take it up, we'll let you make your comments. If they decide they're going to pass it on, then you won't need to.
Thank you.
But we'll give you that opportunity. Thank you. All right, so we've had folks opportunity to speak in favor. Let the record show no one is moving forward to speak in favor. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Let the record show no one is moving to speak in opposition. We will now close the public hearing. The request by the applicant is to send it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Move to return these three items to the Planning Commission for further consideration.
The date of that meeting would be June 12th.
On June 12th. Commissioner Walker.
Well, I had a motion to approve what the Planning Commission recommended.
Okay.
I don't see any circumstances under which they're going to change the plan to satisfy me.
Okay. I'll take that as a motion, as a speech against the motion that's on the table. All right. We do have a motion to send it back, and it is properly on the table. It's moved and seconded. We're still hanging tight on the go back. Okay. Fair enough. It is a second by Jane. All right. The motion and second is properly before us. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Walker would prefer not to send it back. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, it is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Walker.
No.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
All right, that item is sent back. That concludes our planning and zoning consent agenda. We have one item on the planning and zoning non-consent agenda, special use permit application by Pamela Kokoyi. Mr. Richardson, do you have any preliminary comments on this?
The request is for temporary storage trailers to store merchandise that will eventually be put into the adjacent property in a retail store for as a thrift store. The application is presented to you, recommended for denial by the Planning Commission. Ms. Koye is here this evening, and I'm sure she'll like to speak.
All right, I invite the applicant to come forward if you would like to make a presentation.
Good evening.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Pamela Kukoy. The address is 1612 North 38th Street.
Thank you. Would you like to state your case as to why you would like these storage containers?
Yes. It was denied for, I'm assuming they assumed that it was there too long and that they didn't need to be there. My reasoning for having them there to begin with was the property needed to be remodeled. And not being ignorant of the law is no excuse, but I assumed that because that was it was a car lot prior to, that I could put the trailers on the back of the car lot. Now, there's been some concerns that the property is not being kept up, and that's not true. If anyone did their homework, they would have probably called the city and saw that there's only been one violation, and that's one that is current now, and that's because the children in the neighborhood broke out the windows in the front, and I didn't know, again, being ignorant to the law, that you couldn't board it up without paying to board it up. So I'm since making preparations to take those down, but the trailers, I'm not asking for them to be there for a lifetime. I'm asking them to be there for about 6 months, long enough for me to get them emptied out, get the building repaired, and get it moved. The building has taken so long to get repaired because the owner and I have gone back and forth with who is going to repair what. And we have now come to a decision on who's going to repair what, and now I'm going to do the repairs, and they're going to be extensive, so I had to put my merchandise someplace else. I moved from a 10,000 square foot location, and I'm moving to this smaller location. So with that being said, I had a ton of merchandise, so the merchandise is in the trailers. The property is not being unkept. There are no records that indicate that. The last time there was something written from the city code violation was 2013. So I keep the grass cut. I do what needs to be done there. And the trailers are not, as you can see them on the street, you have to drive down Oakland Avenue to see them because they're pushed back because the parking lot is so huge. There was a mention that people in that neighborhood they keep their lawns up and they do this and that and they don't want to see that. That's not true. If the research and homework was done, you'll drive down that neighborhood, that block, properties are dilapidated, trailers are on properties. So I'm just asking for some time to be able to get the repairs done and get them moved. I don't intend to keep them. There's nothing I can do with them. I intend to sell them.
All right, thank you. You're welcome to have a seat, and if there are speakers, we may ask you to come back up and respond. Is there anyone in attendance tonight? I'll open up the public hearing who would like to speak in favor of this application. Let the record show no one stepping forward to speak in favor. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Yes. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Lorraine E. Harris Darby. I reside at 3717 Oakland Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas, 66102. My property is right to the left. This lot she's talking about is directly on the side of my fence to the corner of the street. When you first come down the street, the first thing you notice is the building that's not kept up. Now I notice there's new boards at the windows, and you can see that it's filled with all kind of items inside. You go down just a little bit halfway in the street, you have 3 long trailers, like on an 18-wheeler, the long trailer beds. I guess they're about 48 feet long, 3 in a row. The second one has curse words spray paint all on it, and another one is a dark purple, all 3 of them. And in between the third one is a old blue truck, like a Ford truck with junk in the back of the trunk. The first trailer has been there for 3 years. The other trailers and the truck has been there for 2 years. The property is not kept up. I'm constantly running up on 51st and State at the resource building complaining about the yard not being cut. And I'm sure they have records where the city did come out to cut the grass, and I guess they send the billing to the owner. But this property, what she's talking about, is exactly right next to my home. It is an eyesore. Our neighbors do cut our yards. We keep our neighborhoods up very well. I have pictures in my phone if you'd like to see. My property is right next to hers. We had a hearing on April the 10th. She did come out on the 15th and have somebody to cut the grass. But last summer, the grass was cut only 2 times the whole season. The last month and a half, the grass was not cut.
You have 1 minute, ma'am.
Okay. So she's not maintaining the property. The trailers has been there for 3 years already. I called the Board of Public Utilities yesterday for that property. Utilities have not been on since September 24, 2012. I called the gas company yesterday. There has been no gas on in that property since 2007. Now, the building is already filled with her stuff. Where is this other stuff gonna go? It's been there for 3 years. She's had plenty of time to fix that building up and put the items inside if she was planning on doing that. She's using that land as a dump field, and it's bringing the neighborhood down. And like I said, it's right directly next to my property. And I do have phones on my property. I keep my property up. The neighbors in front of me keep their property up. Everybody gets out there and cut their grass on a weekly basis. And it is a very quiet street. It happens to be a dead-end street.
Your time is up, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Let the record show no one else is moving forward to speak in opposition. I will now close the public hearing. We always offer the applicant, if you would like to make any summative comments, you're welcome to make any summative comments if you would like.
As I mentioned earlier, I went down to the code enforcement. There have been no codes on that property since 2013. That is a dead-end street that has had numerous crime activities on it. One of her neighbors had a drug bust just 3 houses down, so I'm not thinking that that's the savory neighborhood that she's pretending that it is. I've not had those trailers there for 3 years, and I don't intend to keep them there past the time I need to get the property finished. I don't know how she can speak to my wallet or my pocket and tell me when I should have things done or what time frame there should be. But the truck that's sitting there, I don't know whose truck that is. Somebody just off that street parked it there, left it, ran and left it. I've had 2 cars towed off that lot because that one-way street that is drug infested, they run through there, park the car, and keep going. So I can't get the city, the police to move the vehicle because since it's been sitting there, the neighbor next door has piled it up with all kinds of things and they're saying it's too heavy to move.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll close the public hearing now. Commissioner Townsend. No, sorry, we're done. Commissioner Townsend?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I would defer to the person who wants to speak in opposition, just so I have the benefit of hearing, and the rest of the commission has the benefit of hearing everything before I make my comments, though.
Well, we don't reopen the public hearing, so I apologize.
Well, then, in that event, I do have 2 questions for the requester, if she might want to return to the podium. First question, do you live in the neighborhood?
Commissioner, is your microphone on by chance?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you live in the neighborhood where these trailers are located?
I live a block from there, and I own 3 other houses in that neighborhood that have never had any code enforcement problems or anything else. My properties are maintained.
And if these trailers have not been there 3 years, how long have they been there?
I would roughly say about 2.
So, all right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
For the applicant. How long, you say you don't know how long you plan on keeping those trailers there?
No, I did say how long.
About how long?
I don't really anticipate, I'd like to ask for 6 months, but I don't anticipate more than about 2 or 3 months. The weather's warm now. I have some people that'll be able to do the electricity, everything has to be remodeled in that building. It has not been a car lot since 2007.
And the items in those trailers are there to improve that property?
One of them. One of them has materials, and the other 2 have merchandise.
All right, thank you.
All right, is there a motion? Commissioner Johnson.
Well, this is, I think the thing that sticks out to me is the fact that this is an item that has drawn the ire of the people that live on that street. And I have not been able to go to confirm one way or the other, but as to whether how many or, the number of code violations that there are on that property. But it seems to me that if the neighborhood, and I noticed that there were 2 persons that showed up at the hearing, at the planning and zoning meeting. One did not speak, but the other one did. Miss Darby is here tonight. That they probably are representative of other neighbors that have not shown up. I'm inclined to stick with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission with their recommendation of denial at this particular time.
I'll accept that as a motion. And the second? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. I will point out that a vote with the recommendation is for denial. So a vote of yes is for denial. Is that clear? Roll call.
Roll call. Walker.
Yes.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
So the recommendation for denial is upheld. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our regular session of the non-planning consent agenda. Before we get started, I do want to point out that we have another elected official in the chamber. Mr. J.D. Rios with the Community College Board is here tonight. Thank you for being here, Mr. Rios. All right, that brings us to our non-planning and zoning consent agenda. Would anyone in the audience, on the commission, or staff like to withdraw an item from the consent agenda? Any item not withdrawn will be voted on with a single vote. Commissioner Murguia.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to back up and ask a question about the tax status report that's on the bottom of page 4.
Yes?
Just a couple of quick questions. Do we add all those delinquencies, for example, for the Williefield Silver Dollar entity? Do we add 10,000 to 10,000 to 11,000, meaning they're $31,000, $32,000 tax delinquent?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and then the second one, the Mr. Lacani with the liquor store, that's 29, probably $30,000 tax delinquent?
That's correct.
Okay, my other question is, are we sure that these people are the owners, are the actual owners responsible for the property taxes?
Address that?
Yes.
No, in the case of Willie Fields, the owner of the property is responsible for that property tax. It's just listed here. We typically list who the applicant is on the property, so you understand how to relate it back to that. Because if we didn't list him on there, you wouldn't know what property to attach it to. Now, what the relationship is between this lease or renter and the owner and what agreement they have to pay their property taxes, we don't know, but someone else is the owner of that property.
Okay, and when we do this, we only put on there the tax status of the project or the property that is coming in front of us for a vote, correct?
Correct. If they have ownership of other property in the community, we don't put that on here.
But we are not by law to consider that in our vote in regard to that property.
You are correct.
Okay, so, since we're not supposed to consider it, I'm not really sure it's why it's on here, except I do like to know this. So if it's not too cumbersome, I'm curious, when we have these entities that come in front of us for projects, I'd like to know if these owners of these properties own any other property in Wyandotte County and if they're tax delinquent. I only ask that, and I'll tell you why. Well, one, I just want to know that. I think that stands on its own. And what I'd like staff to get back with me on is Lacani is a very unusual last name. They also are the owners of Silver City Apartments, which I've complained about repeatedly, the condition of that property that those people have to live in that live there. So I would like to know if when these projects are in front of us, I'd like to know all the property that the owners of those property own and if they're tax delinquent. I know we can't consider that,
Well,
but it would be nice to know.
I would also like to ask staff, and I know we've had this conversation a number of times, is there a way that, for instance, when you go to apply for a building permit, or you want, which is a service that we provide as a community, that we can deny an application for a building permit based on tax delinquent status? I'd like the legal team to look into that as a little project, because if there's a way that you can't apply for a special use permit because you're delinquent, then that, even if it's not something we can use, if they become delinquent after they've applied, but if they're coming in and asking for us to do a service for them and spend staff time on them and they're tax delinquent, I'd like to know if there's a way to preempt that ahead of time, and just say, I'm sorry, you're not eligible to apply for a special use permit in Kansas City, Kansas because you have properties that are delinquent. I'd be interested in the feasibility of that. The Kansas law will drive that answer to that question, but I would be interested to know that as well.
I agree, Mayor.
Commissioner McKiernan?
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up. I pounded this drum about a dozen times over my 6 years here. I am offended and I am angry when people come before us this far in arrears on their property taxes and they ask this government to work for them. They are not materially contributing to the operation of this government, and yet they want it to do something for them. That offends me, that angers me, and I do not think, well, I do think it should be included, but it's not by law, so it won't be included in my decisions, and it never has been, and it never will be. But I just find it offensive that they come and ask us to work for them. And in one of these cases, I know that planning staff, planning commission, UG commission, and Kansas City, Kansas Police Department have all provided service in the resolution of this case. And I just find it repulsive, but I'll stop now.
I will note that SB 2017-9, that group will be eligible for the tax sale next year. So, all right. Now that our blood pressure is up, we move on to the non-planning consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an item? Any item not removed will be voted on by a single vote.
Second.
Let the record show no one is moving to remove an item, though there are people moving to remove themselves from the room, and that is fine. Roll call.
Roll call. Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right, that brings us now to our administrator's agenda. The first item is a resolution to set a public hearing date to consider the proposed American Royal Project Plan. Please note the only action required tonight is to set a public hearing date. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Mayor, I would like to recognize Lynn Parman, who's here with the American Royal this evening, so thank you for coming out.
Thank you for being here. Item number 2, a memorandum of understanding with the International Association of Firefighters has been pulled, as the clerk noticed. They did submit a signed a copy of their contract this afternoon. Item number 3 is Indian Springs site. Our public hearing for Indian Springs has been canceled. Mr. Bach, would you like to bring us up to date on this
Certainly.
item?
After holding meetings with the community over the past couple of weeks and discussions with the developer, they determined that it was not the right place and time to come forward with their flex spec development project, so they withdrew that. As we've gone through this and looking forward and had conversations with the mayor and commissioners, what we're going to do from a staff perspective is work over the next 90 days to really formulate what we could do from a community planning process where we do get new community input regarding this site, and then bring that back to the governing body around the end of July and let you work through that and see if that meets with your approval, and then we'll roll that out going forward into the year.
All right. I do want to thank, again, I want to thank Lane 4. I think they've worked very hard the last 2+ years to look for the kind of retail that we wanted. The commission did ask them in January, if we can't have retail, what could we have? They brought forward this Flex Tech proposal, and I want to commend the commissioners for doing your due diligence in going out to the community and listening to the community. And based on that feedback, the message was it's not the right project, not the right time. And so the Lane 4 did withdraw that on their own. And I just want to say, as we move forward, we've had very good success with our planning processes in Rosedale, on K32, the Healthy Campus downtown. We are in the process of beginning the planning process for the Northeast Master Plan, which is much needed. And I'm pleased to say that we need to identify the planning process for Indian Springs. And my hope would be is that we'd look at the corridor from 38th Street out to 72nd Street with Indian Springs in the center of that, as the hub of that. So again, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this. I think the process has been good. We did Mid-America Regional Council, there's a little bit of misunderstanding. We thought they were going to present on transit-oriented development. They were not ready for that presentation, but we will bring that back to the commission at a later time. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I just wanted to echo with regard to the Indian Spring project, my colleagues and I that had sponsored those or facilitated those meetings. I do want to, for the record, thank the public that showed up.
Yes, thank you.
There was a lot of engagement, at times quite intense. I went straight to bed, went straight to sleep when I got home. But it was a very necessary conversation, and so for the record, I just want to appreciate everyone that came out to those meetings and voiced their opinion one way or the other. I think it ultimately was a fruitful experience that will lead us to something very positive in the end. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, I'm happy that so many people actually came out and had something to say. So many times we do a lot of things and our communities don't involve themselves. They just let us go ahead and tell us all about it later. So this time they let us know ahead, and I do appreciate that. And what I'm going to ask is, same thing I did that last night, is I want them to stay involved. If they want to be part of this, they need to stay involved and be part of this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes our agenda. I do have one announcement on the screen. Is coming up a Facebook Live. The Chief of Police does a monthly Facebook Live. This next one on May 2nd at 6 p.m., which will be on UGTV as well as on Facebook Live on the Chief of Police's page. We are doing a forum with myself, the Chief of Police, and our District Attorney Dupree. And we're going to be talking about the community forums that we had that went out to the schools. We went to 10 different schools to talk about police-community relationships, and we went to 4 community centers. So we've had over 800 people involved in the community dialogue around police-community relations, and we're going to have a session on May 2nd to talk about next steps for how we can move that public input into action to continue to make our community safer and to continue to improve our relationship with the police and the public. So I want to thank everyone who was involved in those public hearings and invite you to tune in on Facebook Live on May 2nd. Those are all of my announcements. Thank you. We are adjourned.